So now what we're doing is making a repair to the great wheel by restaking the disc back onto the hub, which is a solid piece of brass that includes the click. And what I'm doing here is using a punch that I've blunted the edge on to a certain amount as a staking tool. And if you look right here, you can see one of the new stakes that I have made. Now, in order to preload this down so that it's below the surface of the stake to be more or less like what an original undamaged assembly would look like, I'm using a pair of clamps here. And what I will do is I will do 4 new stakes like this right next to the old ones there. And so I'll start by doing 2 180 degrees apart from each other, and use this clamp to preload it on the other side. And there we go. Gotta do a little bit of adjusting there so that it's not for the stump. I'm using a lantern tool post that does not fit my lathe. I've got a bunch of these that I bought at a swap meet for peanuts, basically. So a few of them are being reappropriated for other uses. And then what we'll do is we'll come in right here, get it lined up about right. I didn't do so well on this one. Must be because it's on camera, but you can see I've upset and peened the metal out a little bit, and when I take the clamp off, it stays in place. And so with the 2 done, I shouldn't need the clamp anymore, and I can go back around and do the others. And I might redo that last one I just did. And trying to keep track of which side of this I use each time, because it might make a difference. There we go. And one more. Of course, the hook is right there in the way slightly. Okay, and let's take a look at that and judge how effective that is. I think it's at least as good as what the original peening was. Maybe not quite as effective, because you see the angle the original peening was done, the original staking was done like that, so where it did more working the metal out, whereas here most of what I'm doing is just making a little projection there on each hope that's coming in focus. A little projection there on each side of the edge of where I did that. But as you can see, it's projecting the right amount out of the top. Maybe not quite as much, which means it's not going to be quite as tight. Oh yeah, that feels plenty stiff. Get rid of that click spring here for a minute. That's fairly tight. I honestly feel that that's too tight, because you cannot get a good feel for the spring with it being that tight. Whereas this, it's almost as tight, but not bad. But I might give that a slight going over again here, just for a little bit of added security. Probably wouldn't be a bad idea actually doing this. Don't want to overdo it, but instead of coming out radially like what I was doing, is to turn the chisel to the side like this and do it that way. But I really don't want to overdo it and make a mess here. It's going to be plenty strong, I think. I'll probably just do that in 2 locations, 180 degrees opposite each other, just for a little bit of added safety. But like I said, I don't want to overdo it, because then there won't be any clean material in case this repair has to be done again. And that seems to have swelled it out real nice there. Make sure that the tension is still right. That's still pretty good. I think I tightened it up a little bit, actually. But the important thing is that now that the ratchet is tight against the hub of the great wheel, so that the click cannot slip underneath the ratchet, between the great wheel and the ratchet. That's the important part, and I think that's what happened to cause the failure that occurred, was that this click slipped under the hub. So anyway, with that repaired, we can clean the movement and reassemble it. And the thing that remains now to do is what to do with these funky springs. How to reassemble them when putting the clock back together. Because you see it leaves awfully long tails there, and obviously I'm going to have to take these out of the retainers to wash the springs. You know, always wash the springs. Do that last. But I'd appreciate viewers if you would leave in the comments what you think. I think it was supposed to be like this, so that it would wind as the spring would wind. It would wind in the normal manner like this. But when I took the clock apart, it was like this. And one interesting side note I want to share with you all. You saw me on camera loosen this pillar nut. None of the other 4 pillar nuts were tight. They were all finger tight. I did not have to use a tool to loosen them off. So, do you think this clock has been into before? I see a lot of bushings here that do not match the color of the brass of the plates, which doesn't necessarily mean that they weren't factory bushings, but it is kind of suspicious. Please share your comments down below, and as always, this is Oklahoma Bridges. Thanks for watching.